Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm Rory McLennan coming to you from Glasgow, Scotland. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. Pope Francis spoke to the faithful gathered in St. Peter's Square for the Sunday Angelus and discussed the yearly week of prayer for Christian unity, which runs from January the 18th to the 25th. The Holy Father pointed out that this year's theme, Do Good, Seek Justice, comes from the prophet Isaiah. He urged believers to give gratitude to the Lord for faithfully and patiently leading his people towards full communion. Pope Francis continued by pointing out the connection between the Church's synodal conversion and the road to Christian unity. He scheduled an ecumenical prayer vigil for Saturday, September the 30th in St. Peter's Square to foster greater unity between Christians. He said, "We will entrust to God the work of the 16th Ordinary General Assembly of the Synod of Bishops at the vigil." The Pope also mentioned that the Taizé community will be hosting a unique programme all weekend long for young people attending the vigil. The former president of Sri Lanka and top security officials have been found guilty of failing to prevent an Easter Sunday attack in 2019 that resulted in the deaths of more than 200 people. Cardinal Malcolm Ranjit of Colombo applauded the Supreme Court verdict as a milestone on the path to criminal liability and a potential prison sentence. The Sri Lankan Supreme Court found on Thursday that former President Maithripala Sirisena and 4 other officials had credible warnings of an impending attack in April of 2019, but had taken no action. The judges highlighted what they termed the executive branch of government's reckless failure. Sirisena was ordered to pay around $275,000 as a penalty. 3 churches and 3 hotels were bombed in a series of coordinated strikes on April the 21st in 2019, that being Easter Sunday. Later, the Islamic State took responsibility for the explosions, claiming that Christians and people from nations in the anti-ISIS alliance had been the intended targets. On Sunday, more than 10 people were killed and 39 injured in a bomb attack on a church in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Islamic State militants have claimed responsibility for the attack on a Pentecostal church in Kasindi, a town in the North Kivu province, close to Uganda. The Allied Democratic Forces, which the Islamic State group claims to be its affiliate in Central Africa, is believed to have carried out the attack. The group is among the most violent of the more than 120 armed organisations that exist in the eastern part of the country. Many of them are the result of the several regional conflicts that erupted around the turn of the century in the country. Cardinal Konrad Krajewski, the Papal almoner, has announced that €300,000 have been raised for war-torn Ukraine. The Cardinal said it will now be possible to send more thermal shirts and generators to the country. All of the new equipment will be delivered in 2 days and made available to those suffering from the cold weather and from the lack of power. Meanwhile, an apartment was hit during a wave of Russian missile attacks that left 14 dead and 64 injured. Numerous sites were attacked on Saturday, while Ukrainians attempted to observe the Old New Year holiday. Russia launched the assaults after declaring victory in Soledar, where hundreds of people are reportedly still trapped. According to Regional Governor Pavlo Krylenko, as many as 559 residents, including 15 children, were still stranded in the eastern salt mining town and unable to be evacuated. A Catholic priest has been killed in Nigeria, with another being injured. Father Isaac Achi, the parish priest of St. Peter and Paul Church in Kafin Koro in Niger State, was killed by bandits early on Sunday. They torched his presbytery, with the priest unable to escape from the burning house. Father Collins Ome, who tried to escape, was shot by the assailants and is being treated in hospital. Later that day, the Catholic Diocese of Mina issued a statement asking for prayers for the diocese and for Father Collins' speedy recovery. A State Police Public Relations officer confirmed that the incident occurred at 3 o'clock in the morning. He stated that the bandits attempted to enter the residence but failed and then set fire to the property. The Commissioner of Police sent a reinforcement team to the area and efforts are ongoing to apprehend the assailants. Pope Francis has sent a letter to Cardinal Juan Rodriguez of Cuba, conveying his blessings and closeness to the Church on the island as it marks the 25th anniversary of Pope St. John Paul II's apostolic journey to the communist country. It was from January the 21st to the 25th in 1998 that the Polish Pope visited Cuba upon the invitation of then-President Fidel Castro. Pope Francis urged the Cuban faithful to continue constructing the future of their country with hope and resolve, recalling the remarks made by Pope St. John Paul II to the youth on January the 23rd in 1998. He also exhorted people to honour their Christian heritage and identity to create a future of ever greater dignity and freedom. The Holy Father thanked the Cuban people for serving as an example of collaboration and mutual help that connects them. Before the week of prayer for Christian unity, Chaldean Patriarch Louis Raphael Sacco issued a statement seeking greater unity among Eastern churches in the Middle East. The Iraqi Patriarch wrote a letter titled "The Eastern Churches Need a Breath of Fresh Air," in which he emphasized the importance of unity in light of the numerous threats facing churches in the Middle East. He said that the Church ought to react to cultural and societal developments the same way that Christ did. The Patriarch said that truth and renewal lie at the centre of the character of the Church. Meanwhile, the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom has released a report on religious persecution in Iraq. The report details that Iraqi Christians are still largely displaced. Following the rampage of the Islamic State militants, tens of thousands of Christians remain homeless and unable to return to their own homes. The US Supreme Court decided to hear an appeal from an evangelical Christian former mail carrier from Pennsylvania on Friday. He accused the US Postal Service of discriminating against him because he refused to carry parcels on Sundays. The justices took up Gerald Groff's case after lower courts rejected his claim that the Postal Service had broken the law against discrimination by refusing to exempt him from working on Sundays. The case examines accommodations that businesses are required to provide to employees who need them for religious reasons. In 2019, Mr. Groff filed a lawsuit against the US Postal Service. The Third US Circuit Court of Appeals in Philadelphia dismissed the complaint last year after determining that Groff's exclusion had put a burden on co-workers and hindered workflow, resulting in undue hardship. British police have arrested a 22-year-old man who is suspected of shooting at people attending a funeral in a church in London. It was on the afternoon of January the 14th that 4 women and 2 girls were injured in the shooting while attending a funeral service at St Aloysius Catholic Church in northwest London. One of the girls, who is 7 years old, is in a serious condition. A 12-year-old girl who sustained a leg injury was taken to hospital but was later released after treatment. Further details regarding the motive behind the shooting are still awaited. A Byzantine Christian church dating back to the 6th century has been uncovered by an archaeologist's team from the Israel Antiquities Authority. According to the Times of Israel, the church was discovered in Jericho, a Palestinian city in the West Bank, by the Civil Administration's Archaeology Unit. The church is said to be spread across 250 square metres, which would have made it a sizable structure for its period. According to the Archaeology Department, the enclosure was still in use in the early Islamic era. During the Islamic takeover in the 7th century, the mosaics on the floors of the church were unharmed, even though Islam forbids icons and images in public. According to the Times of Israel, the church's nave has been preserved in its entirety. An appeal court in France's Bordeaux has ordered the La Flotte municipality to remove the Virgin Mary statue that is located at a crossroads on Ile de Ré Island. The statue was donated by a family after the Second World War to celebrate the safe return of a father and son from the combat zone. The court observed that the statue in a public place violated the 1905 French law on the separation of the churches and state. The municipality has been given 6 months to remove the statue. The ruling follows a similar judgment by a court in Poitiers. The demand to remove the statue was first made by La Libre Pensée 17, a French secularist organisation. However, Mayor Jean-Paul Hérodeau is against the removal of the statue. Politician Karim Uchik, who is a Catholic convert from Islam, expressed dismay over the ruling. He tweeted that his heart bleeds to see how much his country denies its Christian roots. Nepal is mourning the victims of a deadly air crash that left at least 68 people dead. On Sunday morning, a passenger aircraft operated by Yeti Airlines crashed into a hill as it was getting ready to land on an airfield in the northern city of Pokhara. Social media videos revealed that the propeller plane seemed to approach normally before it veered to one side and crashed into a hillside. This is the deadliest crash in Nepal in at least 3 decades. Some 72 passengers and crew were on board the flight. On Monday, around 300 rescue workers resumed their search, combing through the charred wreckage. The Prime Minister of Nepal declared Monday to be a national day of mourning, and the government has set up a panel to investigate the cause of the disaster. Reports indicate that the voice and flight data recorders of the aircraft have been located. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us again tomorrow for more, and do remember, you can always visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.